Hey guys, welcome to the video on how to convert the Harbor Freight 5-pound vibratory tumbler to use a flow-through system for polishing small parts and precious metals. This is not perfect, but if you have a small shop and you don't produce that many pieces, it should do just fine. So let's get into it. Okay, so here it is. As the listed capacity would suggest, it's not very big. This is model 67617, and it's about $65 at Harbor Freight. Now, a good thing to note is that it says explicitly on the tumbler, do not use for rock polishing or wet tumbling. That's cute. Okay, here are the parts we're going to need. 4 O-rings. Neoprene washers would be better, but I couldn't find any. Some nylon nuts. You'll see that one of these looks different from the other. They used to look the same, but we'll talk about why that is later. And some plastic hose barbs. These are half-inch pipe thread. You can use whatever size seems appropriate to you. And on the end of those, I've glued some stainless steel faucet screens to keep the polishing media from getting into the flow-through system. You're going to need a heat gun, and then also you need some lengths of tubing. This is half-inch outer diameter, 3/8 inner diameter that fits the fittings that I have. Just make sure that they match up on yours. And a small pond pump. This one is from Creekstone, also sold at Harbor Freight, and you really want one that has flow control. You'll see why later. Okay, let's go ahead and open up the tumbler. You can see there's still some water in there because I had been using it previously to polish something. And we're going to get our hose barbs, and we need to make some holes in the tumbler to let those pass through so we can get the water in there into the barrel. I've already done this, but you can see there's one up high on one side for an inlet where it goes into the barrel, and one on the opposite side down low that's going to let the water come out and go back into the bucket that keeps the polishing solution cycling. And you can see here the holes that wound up working for these fittings were about 3/4 of an inch in diameter. Yours may be different. All right, so let's take the fitting, and we're going to put a little bit of silicone sealant on there just to give it a little bit of additional water tightness once we get it in. And I think this is the part where I was screwing around with the tube of silicone. It was all clogged up. Yeah, and a little bit more silicone sealant. So get that down in the threads of the fitting, and we're going to wind up using this on some other parts as well. We'll put it on the O-ring that's going to go around the fitting, and slip the O-ring over the threads. And here we go. So the hole was a little tight. I kind of used the threads on the fitting to cut a little bit of, to cut into the barrel, and that worked out well because it holds it in there really tightly. You want to make sure that the inlet fitting has the barb pointing down so that you can have the hose pointing into the barrel. Put another O-ring on the inside. Get that seated up against the wall of the barrel real good. And we'll take our larger lock nut. I think these are for a sink. I don't really know. They're not for this, but it was what I could find that had half-inch pipe thread, and it seems to work. And screw that onto the barb fitting and really snug it down so that it compresses that O-ring on the inside. Gives you a nice seal. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side with the drain hole. I've already got the O-ring installed on this fitting. So just take it and screw it in there. And on this one, you want to make sure also that the barb is pointing down or down into the side, whatever works best, just so that the hose that lets the water run back into the bucket full of polishing solution that you're going to have is down, pointing down from the barrel. On goes the other O-ring. It's a little awkward to get your hand inside there. The barrel really is not very big. And this is where you can see why why the second lock nut looks different from the other. The first one had a big wide flange on it, and I think I show it here in just a second. Yeah, that big flange at the bottom of the nut, I cut that off so that it would fit better up against the wall of the barrel there at the bottom and not create as much of a trap for things that are being polished to get stuck under. So go ahead and snug that down as well. And for this, if you can find a nylon hex nut, that probably would be a better choice. I just wasn't able to find any when I was shopping for these parts. Make sure the fitting is still oriented correctly on the outside. And now it's time to hook up the hoses. So take the end of the hose that comes from your pump, and that's going to go to the fitting at the top of the barrel to send the water, the polishing solution, into where the media and the workpieces are. You want to hit that with the heat gun a little bit so that it'll slip over the fitting really easily. And what you're looking for is to be able to easily squeeze and deform this tubing. That's how you'll know that it's soft enough. It doesn't take a whole lot. That's not quite there, so we're going to hit it a little bit more. Just a few seconds. I'm using this heat gun on the lowest setting as well. Once your tubing's nice and soft, using both hands if you're not holding a camera, go ahead and push it up over that barb fitting until it's all the way past the barbs and seated nicely against the 90-degree turn there. And once that cools off, it should be watertight. And then we're going to take the line that's not attached to the pump and do the same thing. And now it's time to get the pump into the water. When you're polishing, this bucket, of course, will have whatever, deburring compound or burnishing compound or whatever you're using in addition to the water. This is just clean water for a test. And stick your pump in the bucket and get everything plugged in. Again, it works better if you use two hands. And the pump's plugged in. You can see the water is running into the tumbler, and this is where the flow adjustment is important because that will really let you control how much water, how much spray you're getting. And there you can see the drain port is working. And right here underneath is where in the first iteration of this project I was getting some leaks. But everything is flowing freely and we don't seem to be having that problem now. The first time I did it, I only used one O-ring, and I don't think I seated the drain fitting quite correctly. Don't turn it on without the lid. It sprays stuff everywhere. And one last check, and it looks like everything is good. So this conversion worked out pretty well, and that's about it. If you have any questions about anything that I did, then please feel free to comment on this video or send me an email. And right there on the screen is my web address as well. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you all on the next one.